Hey Internet, welcome back to What's the Points? I'm Mike. So today is September 21st, 2025, first day of autumn. And only 3 days ago was Platinum Day, where we saw a major refresh of the American Express Platinum. And this comes hot on the heels of the Chase Sapphire Reserves refresh. Now, I've talked a little bit about this CSR refresh, but this has been kind of overdue. I was so underwhelmed by the refresh of it that I had to wait for some inspiration. And I think we finally have it. So if that sounds interesting, helpful for you, then please stick around, give a like and subscribe. Unless you've been living under a rock, you probably saw that Amex refreshed their Platinum with most of the features that had been rumored, and with a few pleasant surprises, at least for me. So off the top of my head, adding YouTube Premium as well as YouTube TV as options for the entertainment credit is an enhancement. I want to point out some important distinctions between these cards, and I'm a little bit surprised. Kind of spoiling my results here, I'm going to say that actually the Platinum is the superior card all around. I'm a little bit surprised to hear myself say this for a few reasons. One, I had been very much Team Chase up until this point, and that partly has to do with my specific situation. Namely that, A, I've been staying at a lot of Hyatts lately, and Amex doesn't transfer to Hyatt, unlike Chase. But also that the CSR previously, it kind of fit a gap between the simpler premium travel cards like the Capital One Venture X and the more complicated and expensive Amex Platinum. However, now we're seeing a situation where at $795, the CSR is now only $100 less than the Platinum refresh at $895. So the CSR saw a $250 increase. And what do you get for that? The biggest thing that I see is the addition of the biannual Chase Edit credit, which is up to $250 twice per year. However, it's for a 2-night minimum stay. Now, by contrast, Amex saw what they're doing there and they said, not so fast. We're going to give a whopping $600 travel credit broken up into biannual $300, but we're going to keep the minimum, at least for FHR, 1 night. You can now use this credit as well for the hotel collection, which is interesting. I haven't looked too much into that yet, but you do have to stay there for 2 nights. Now, I have a very limited data set yet comparing these two, but I'll just give an example of Taipei, Taiwan, which I have a trip coming up next spring. Now, I looked at the Amex FHR and I saw 6 options for the fine hotels and resorts. Of those 6, none of them were on the Chase Edit. In fact, I only found one. It's the hotel that Sebi mentioned. I wouldn't have found it otherwise because it actually didn't even show up in the top of the search results. So I had to separately search for that specific property. So the most noteworthy thing about this search, and again, this is just for one specific set of dates, but those 6 FHR hotels were all about 10% less than through Chase Travel. And that was with FHR benefits. Again, I want to emphasize this. 10% less with the FHR benefits, which among other things include a $100 on-property credit and lots of other elite light benefits. The Chase Travel, by comparison, none of those were Edit hotels. So what is going on, Chase? Not the only place that I've seen this. I've definitely seen a lot of anecdotal data points out there with people trying and having a harder time to use the Edit. Now, I'm not really sure if there's specific use cases that I'm missing where this could be more handy. I think what we're seeing is the bottom line here is that Chase is trying to compete, but is doing so some of the right ways and some of the wrong ways. So in my opinion, the right way is the Sapphire lounges, the more sort of alternatives to the boring old domestic lounges that we have, where we can get a little bit better food and more interesting amenities. Capital One, for example, is kind of one-upping as far as the overall quality, in my opinion, versus the Centurion lounges. They're doing it at a $400 price point. So CSR is kind of forgetting its place here. And by adding, much like their United refresh, a lot of other inconsequential and complicated and difficult to use credits, such as DoorDash grocery credit and some other things. But I think the bottom line that we're seeing so far, from what I can tell, is that, again, they're missing that opportunity to be the middle point. I'm no marketing executive, but it seems to me that the CSR was comfortable in its own skin previously in terms of being something where you didn't have to worry as much about getting the value of the credits. And you didn't have to worry as much about spending in the right categories, because as a catch-all travel card, it was giving you 3x on everything and you didn't have to think about it. Some people are saying, well, I'll trade that off for now having 4x on booking direct through hotels and airlines. And yes, that's kind of nice. The Platinum gives you 5x on airlines. Now, you don't get a multiplier for booking through hotels direct, but unless you're a hotel free agent, and not just free agent, but someone who more specifically has no hotel credit card, then I'm not sure how interesting this is going to be. Now, if you're someone who is really dedicated at staying at boutique hotels, but not vacation rentals, then I guess this is the winner for you, because that's what we're losing here, right? We're losing a 3x at vacation rentals. We're losing a 3x on transit, on parking, on tolls. How important is this? I didn't even mention rental cars. I think it's important because I could just reach for my one travel card, but now I can't do that anymore. They want me to use this more like the Platinum. Okay, but the Platinum is arguably not any more complex than the CSR now. The Platinum clearly gives a better value overall as far as the size and the quantity of the credits. And now, ironically enough, as far as the simplicity of them. So for example, I'll highlight a few of the new ones like everyone else. You have this quarterly Lululemon credit, it's $75. And that's enough to get most, if not all, of a single garment once every quarter, which I think is usable for anyone who has any interest in the clothing that they make. The FHR, again, I think that's relatively easy to use because you only need to find one single night and there's a pretty good selection. Now you've got also a quarterly Resi credit. And again, as long as you're living or traveling near or to locations that have Resi, which as I understand, there's 16,000 restaurants in that network now. So that's better than whatever Chase is doing. That's easy to use, right? Because that's $100 once every quarter. I'm okay with that. And I do use an app called Card Pointers to help me track credits across all the different cards. And so look, I get it. I get that these banks, they don't want you to sock drawer your card. They're trying to entice you, or in the case of Chase, in my opinion, they're trying to force you to have to make more effort in order to get your value back. And so this is why I would conclude that the Amex is the better card overall. Now, again, with the disclaimer that neither of these cards are really intended for a general audience. These are intended for people who are travel enthusiasts, earning value, and we care about saving money and having great experiences. And you have to have all of those. But if you're adding cards that, at least beyond year one when you get the sign-up bonus, are adding more complexity and causing you to have to use overpriced benefits in order to get these rebates, then it's not living up to its potential. Before making this, I rewatched Sebi's, from Ask Sebi, his recent review of the CSR refresh. He said that it's more of a keeper card for him now. Now, if you follow his channel, he's much more of an outlier. I mean, I have been traveling a lot the last couple of years, and even with how much I'm still trying to find ways to get ultimate rewards points by Chase, especially now that they're sort of cracking down and making it harder to get sign-up bonuses on all of their cards, you would think that I would be more bullish on this card. But honestly, all it's causing me to do is actually have me rethink my Hyatt strategy, because it's easier, and ironically, again, this is the bottom line, less work to get your value out of the Platinum. And so to me, that's the biggest shock from all of this, because on paper, it's still a more complicated card. At the end of the day, though, it ends up being a simpler card overall, which shows that CSR, to me, that was its major competitive advantage, is that It gave you simpler pathways to earning points on multipliers. And yeah, sure, some of those were niche, but for example, the biggest nerf was the loss of the 10x for Lyft. Chase could have continued to clean the floor with Amex in terms of the rideshare benefit, at least for domestic travel. And that was a huge way of generating points for me, getting that 10x. But now that it's 5x, I don't know. I think Lyft still has the benefit, in my opinion, of having better loyalty partners that you can attach, but you don't need the CSR to do that, right? So you can earn Bilt points, you can earn American Airlines miles or Alaska Airlines miles / points now, I guess. So there are some advantages to Lyft over Uber, such as that. And in the most interesting twist of all, Uber One is now an included benefit on the Platinum, where that was another nerf with the CSR. We lost the Lyft Pink. What we did get is a transition. We got half off. So normally it's $200 a year. For this last year, we were granted a $99 renewal, but my next renewal coming up is full price. So what are we getting? Well, we're getting the flat $10 a month credit from the CSR towards Lyft, but we're getting 15 with the Uber on the Platinum, plus free annual or monthly Uber One subscription. So again, at almost every step of the way, the Platinum is outshining the CSR. As it looks right now, unless the circumstances change drastically, when it comes time to renew these two cards, I don't know 100% for sure yet that I will renew the Platinum at the new $8.95 annual fee. But I can say for certain that I am downgrading my CSR card, most likely to another Freedom Flex card. And then I'll probably use the Chase Inc. Preferred card as my $95 way of paying the Chase tax so I can transfer out points to Partner Award Program. Thanks for sticking around. Let's take care of each other. Ciao for now.